Thanks to today's technologies, space exploration is no longer a dream of the past. Today, approximately 100 rockets are launched every year for this cause, but like all things, it also has its repercussions, such as space junk. So for today, we'll be elaborating about space junk, what causes it to fall to Earth, and should we be concerned about its happening more often. So make sure you keep watching if you want to know more about this topic. What is space junk, and is it something we should all be concerned about? Space junk is any piece of equipment or debris left in space by humans, and is known as space junk or space debris. It can be used to describe large objects like satellites that have failed and were left in orbit after their missions. It can also be used to describe tiny objects like paint flecks or debris that have fallen off a rocket. The moon has also been left with some trash created by humans. So approximately how much space junk is there as of the moment? There are currently 2,000 functioning satellites orbiting the Earth. However, there are also 3,000 dead satellites scattered around space. Additionally, millions of smaller bits could still be disastrous if they collide with something else, as well as 34,000 pieces of space trash that are larger than 10 centimeters in size. How does space debris get there in the first place? Every piece of space junk is a product of Earth-launched items that stay in orbit until they re-enter the atmosphere. Some objects can return fast in lower orbits of a few hundred kilometers. After a few years, they frequently enter the atmosphere and, for the most part, burn up, preventing them from reaching the ground. But at greater altitudes of 36,000 kilometers, where communications and weather satellites are frequently deployed in geostationary orbits, trash or satellites left behind can continue to circle the Earth for hundreds or even thousands of years. Some space debris is the result of collisions or orbital anti-satellite tests. There can be a lot of new debris produced when two spacecraft crash, since they can shatter into thousands of new fragments. Although it is uncommon, numerous nations, including the USA, China, and India, have practiced destroying their own satellites with the help of missiles. Numerous new harmful debris pieces are produced as a result. What dangers does space debris pose to space travel? Fortunately, space trash doesn't currently represent a serious threat to our exploration endeavors. Its greatest threat is to other satellites that are in orbit. To avoid being hit and maybe being damaged or destroyed by all this approaching space junk, these satellites must maneuver out of the path. Every year, all satellites, including the International Space Station, ISS, where humans live, conduct hundreds of collision avoidance maneuvers. Fortunately, collisions happen seldom. A Chinese spacecraft was destroyed in a collision in March 2021. Before that, in 2009, a satellite collided with space debris and was obliterated. There isn't much space debris in the universe, but none of it interferes with the exploration of the solar system and beyond. So, is there a way we can clean up this space debris? All businesses are required by the United Nations to remove their satellites from orbit within 25 years of the completion of their mission. However, because satellites can malfunction, and frequently do, it is difficult to enforce this. Numerous businesses from around the world have developed creative methods to address this issue. These include bringing down and burning satellites that have reached the end of their lives so they can be removed from space. We could accomplish this by harpooning a satellite, entangling it in a massive net, grabbing it with magnets, or even shooting lasers at the satellite to heat it and increase air drag, causing it to fall out of orbit. These techniques, though, are only practical for sizable satellites orbiting the Earth. We actually don't have a technique to clean up smaller pieces of trash like paint and metal fragments. We merely need to wait for them to return to Earth's atmosphere organically. Another term attached to space junk is the Kessler syndrome. What is this? Donald Kessler, a NASA scientist, put forth the Kessler concept in 1978. According to him, if there was too much space trash in orbit, it may cause a chain reaction in which more and more objects collide and produce new space junk as a result, rendering Earth's orbit useless. Although this scenario would be severe, some experts are concerned that a variation of it could become an issue in the future and advise taking precautions to ensure that it never does. The film Gravity also helped to popularize this concept. Since space debris is a growing problem now, will it pose a bigger problem in the future? It may very well be. Megaconstellations, which are huge new groups of satellites being planned by several firms, will transmit the internet to Earth. To provide satellite internet service everywhere, these businesses, which include SpaceX and Amazon, intend to deploy thousands of satellites. 50,000 more satellites might be in orbit if the project is successful. This also implies that a great deal more collision avoidance maneuvers will be required. The European Space Agency maneuvered its first satellite to steer clear of a megaconstellation in September 2019. It is uncommon to need to stay away from active satellites. We can lessen the issue of space junk in the future by ensuring that satellites are removed from orbit on time once they are no longer functional. We can study our planet, communicate, and more thanks to the Earth's orbit. We must use it wisely so that future generations can profit from it as well. As mentioned earlier, space isn't the only venue where debris is found. Some of it is also located on the Moon. We've left a lot of space debris in Earth's orbit, but there is also debris elsewhere, including on the Moon's surface. On the Moon, certain items were left behind, while others were left as keepsakes or time capsules. 190,000 kilos of stuff left by humans on the Moon 54 unmanned spacecraft that have crashed or landed on the moon, and 3 moon buggies from Apollo 15, 16, and 17 are just a few of the quick facts about what has been left on the moon. Now, let's move on to more important things: how space debris is affecting the Earth's environment. According to researchers, the Earth's atmosphere is where roughly 80 tons of space debris re-enter each year, although most of that trash will burn up or fall to Earth unnoticed. Sadly, just because something burns up doesn't mean it goes away. These debris bits may be broken down and melted by the extreme heat produced by friction, but the component chemicals are still being released into our atmosphere. While pushing back into the atmosphere and burning up, some composite metals and polymers actually consume ozone by producing nitric oxide, which can deplete ozone. Fortunately, given the size of our planet and the vastness of space, the amount of junk that enters the atmosphere of Earth each year has little effect on the ecosystem at the moment. More harm is done to the ozone layer and the environment by human activities than by a few thousand little impacts from tiny pieces of space debris. Some people worry that a satellite will crash onto their home, yet the likelihood of something falling from space and hitting a person is astronomically remote. There has only been one documented instance of a human being hit by falling space debris in the 6 decades since we started launching objects into space. In essence, you are more likely to be bitten by a shark and hit by lightning on the same day that you win the lottery than to be killed by a rocket booster fragment that falls to the ground. But just because space debris doesn't pose an alarming threat to our environment doesn't mean we should take this problem lightly. Even though there isn't a direct threat from space debris to our terrestrial environment right now, we nevertheless need to take note of how it is affecting the astral world. One of the fundamental requirements for that is leaving the Earth, although other people hold the view that humanity's destiny rests among the stars. It will be more challenging to launch rockets into space safely as more and more space debris gathers and whirls about the globe. Choosing the right course is presently essential to mission safety, but in the years to come, the challenge might get exponentially worse. In the future decades, several sizable telecommunications corporations plan to launch mega-constellations of communication satellites into orbit in a bid to expand or improve coverage and offer internet and digital service to far-flung regions of the globe. Although this is a great objective, thousands more small satellites in low Earth orbit would significantly increase the chance of accidents, and in the next 50 years, it may even result in the Kessler syndrome, a hypothetical disaster that we mentioned earlier. In this scenario, a single collision will produce a significant amount of extra debris, which will subsequently hit more satellites and set off a catastrophic chain reaction. Some theorists are concerned about these new suggestions for mega-constellations of satellites, even though this has been thought to be unfeasible for several decades. For common folk, we can't do much about this problem, but the companies who have continuously launched spacecraft should do something about this problem. And on that note, we're ending today's video about space junk. Hopefully, you learned a lot from watching today's video. Don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel with the notification bell on before you go, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching.